It's time for the Splash Live from Civic Center TV, featuring stories from and about people like you in the greater West Bloomfield area. Simulcast on cable, 89.3 Lakes FM, social media, and the web. Now live from Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road, it's the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, it's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV. Welcome friends and neighbors, I'm Tyler Kieft. Thank you for joining us. Big news this week for the future of high school athletics in greater West Bloomfield as the Michigan High School Athletics Association, better known as the MHSAA, and their representative council approved the expansion of name, image, and likeness opportunities for student athletes. You've probably heard of it. It's probably referred to as NIL. It's a big move following in the footsteps of the majority of the other 49 states in the union, but one with uncertainty attached for parents, students, and fans alike. Here to clear up the big change is the MHSAA's Director of Communications, Jeff Kimmerly. Jeff, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure.
Glad to have you on. This was big news from the MHSAA when they released it here in late January. Expanding NIL opportunities. People may not understand that there were some name, image, and likeness opportunities available, camps, clinics, and the like, but now the branding opportunities are expanding. So give us the overview of how this changes NIL in relation to our high school athletes here in greater West Bloomfield and across the state.
Yeah, so really, that's why we're calling them personal branding activities. They really that really describes more what is now available to student athletes potentially. It could include anything from endorsing products to merchandising to autograph sessions, things that you would probably associate with such, with NIL at the college level, except for the main difference here, and hopefully something that helps, maybe tamp down some of the anxiety that people are feeling. These are individual opportunities for individual student athletes. Anything that looks like a group activity or a collective or pay for play or any of the stuff that we're seeing at the college level is strictly prohibited. These are strictly individual, strictly third party. Schools cannot be involved in all. School uniforms can't be worn. Opportunities can't be capitalized on school grounds or during school hours or during practices or games with the school team. It really is something where if an athlete has built a brand, and that's part of why this is happening now. This has been, sort of the evolution of branding, and it's happening at younger ages. If a student has that kind of brand, he or she can take advantage of these opportunities as long as they remain within the criteria that we've set forward if they wish to remain eligible in our sports.
And the star power of these high school athletes, the reality today is they have that star power early on. They start getting that recognition. The Power 5 schools, especially in the prestige sports, bring that here to our hometowns like greater West Bloomfield. We think of athletes recently like Donovan Edwards, like Summer and India Davis, players that had a brand because of their notoriety but weren't able to utilize that brand under the previous rules of the MHSAA, where now, after being in college for Donovan Edwards, now as a professional athlete, they're able to market that. Now the high school athletes can do that as well. A big part of this that you mentioned is that there is that level of separation. The schools, unlike at the collegiate level, can't have those third-party programs or associated programs to bring NIL to their schools. How important of an element was that to the representative council's rules within this NIL regulation now?
Honestly, it's almost everything. We have promoted competitive equity for 101 years now at the MHSAA, and that's certainly something that we're going to continue to promote, as well as our mission of athletics being an extension of the classroom at our level. We are still educational athletics, and honestly, out of the 180,000 high school athletes we have, this is going to impact a very, very small handful. Obviously, the names that you mentioned, West Bloomfield has had some notable athletes these last several years, and those would probably be the caliber of athletes that will see potential opportunities. What we have heard from other states is that this is having almost no effect on what they do in educational athletics. And really, it's less than a fraction of a percent of their athletes are receiving, the kind of bigger money interest that would generate, these sort of things. So on the same, at the same time, it's hard to anticipate for sure and know what this is going to look like. I think people are really curious about what local deals might look like, but we've got a lot of safeguards in place there as well, so that school people are not involved whatsoever. Boosters are not involved whatsoever. Donors are not involved whatsoever. We do not want to have what's happening at the college level happen at the high school level. We've opened up some opportunities for some people that might be able to get them, but we are not going to change our competitive structure for that.
That's the key point that you made there. You don't want it to turn into sort of the Wild West, as the terminology tends to go with people when they talk about NIL at the collegiate level. So you have rules in place to maintain that level of separation. You're giving these opportunities now for kids to market themselves, whether they are the star athlete who has all the attention from the state and the national level coming to Greater West Bloomfield's 7 school districts and parochial schools such as Orchard Lake St. Mary's also included in that, but the guardrails have to be there as well. So how will the MHSAA be addressing policing these rules, making sure that students are staying within the rules, and also that programs and others involved in NIL aren't violating, as you said, mentioned there, the sanctity of student athletics in Michigan?
So any of these personal branding activities will need to be disclosed to the MHSAA within 7 days of an opportunity being accepted or a contract being signed. They'll have to be approved by the MHSAA as well. And if a student goes ahead with something that is not approved, obviously that student will be putting his or her eligibility at risk. If we find a school is involving themselves in this, or a donor for a school, or anyone connected to a school is involving itself in one of these activities, that school will be putting its membership in jeopardy. That is not something we throw around lightly. And so hopefully by that, people realize the seriousness with which we are considering these proposals.
Jeff Kimberly is with us, the Director of Communications at the Michigan High School Athletics Association. You can get more information on this expansion of name, image, and likeness opportunities for student athletes in Michigan on their website, MHSAA.com. It was a big decision. It kind of hit as a big news dump at the end of a day early on in the week, Jeff. But this was not a decision that just suddenly came up. This has been a changing of the status quo in high school sports all across the U.S., but why now in 2026, early on, was this the decision made by the MHSAA Representative Council?
Yeah, so we've really been talking about this even going back 5 years. That's when the NCAA started changing its rules. Some states were early adopters and did some similar things. 3 years ago, things picked up pretty significantly in Michigan. There was a bill in the Michigan House that it ended up stalling, but at the time the sponsor had consulted with us and had taken our feelings to heart, to be honest, and had written a lot of things into that bill that we said that we could work with, and the big one again being individual opportunities for individual athletes. So a lot of what you're seeing now is very similar to what was in that bill, including not only the individual part, but also the fact that things need to be disclosed and approved. That was part of that original bill as well. We've been talking about this a lot, even over the last year or two. Anytime we've had any sort of meetings with our membership, we meet with athletic directors every fall all over the state. We meet with leagues and conferences, principals, superintendents. This has almost always been part of the conversation, really just to let people know what was happening in other states and where we were on the potential of changing things in Michigan. Again, we're the 47th state to do this. So by waiting as long as we have, I think it's been prudent. We've been able to see what other states have done well, where they've had trouble, what they wanted to change after the fact. And I think we've really threaded the needle in terms of, what we wanted to do. I wouldn't necessarily say that we news dumped this by any means. We had to contact our schools first,
of course,
because those are the people that we serve. but we tried to get it out early afternoon and give schools enough time that day to have the opportunity to get a hold of us if they need to answer questions, things like that. Something like this comes with a significant amount of preparation to make sure that we can answer as many questions as possible as soon as they're asked. And there's a ton of stuff on our website that explains what's allowed, what's not allowed, who's allowed to be involved, who's not allowed to be involved. And we'll continue to get that information to the people who need it.
It's almost natural nowadays for the reaction to something as significant as this, a change to the status quo of something as innocent as high school sports in the state of Michigan, a beloved pastime for communities like ours here in greater West Bloomfield and everywhere, for the reaction to be whoa and to be what are we doing here? What has happened to this thing that I love? But as you mentioned, the Michigan High School Athletics Association, this representative council, these leaders are superintendents, they're principals, they're athletic directors, they're teachers, they're from all different classes of these schools, all different divisions, all different regions of the state. And they and those in the administration of the MHSAA have had that opportunity to look at the other 40 plus states in the union that have had NIL on this scale for many years. What are some of the key lessons that the MHSAA has learned from that expansion elsewhere in our region and across the union that were applied here to make sure that when Michigan expands NIL for its high school athletes, they do it the right way and they do it in a way that won't disrupt the amateur competitive balance that's the vast majority of our high school sports?
Sure, and I think it starts with the fact that we're calling it personal branding as opposed to really using the NIL acronym to describe this. I think when NIL began at the college level, right, it was about video games and jerseys, and that has just changed substantially, especially with more social media branding going on, things like that. Really, we wanted to call this a branding activity because this is something, it just describes these opportunities a little bit more, helps people to kind of hone in on those a little bit more. So, that was a big one. I think early adopters to this, when they rolled the rules out, they were really broad. And now they've tried to dial things back a little bit. There's at least one state out there that has that had put NIL rules in place. Their state board of education then voted to remove them, and then the courts voted to reinstate them. So obviously this is a conversation that's still really moving in a lot of places as well. I think that it really allowed us to make a rule that's specific, that really addresses specifically what's allowed and does present some opportunities to the athletes that can make that kind of money. They are allowed to do that now. But at the same time, we've really threaded the needle there. And again, maybe the biggest thing of all, on top of writing the rule is just knowing perhaps what to anticipate here, to know that this really is not changing up educational athletics, which is what everyone's fear is. And I understand that. I've had those early anxieties as well. But the more I've talked about this this week and explained to people what this policy allows, the more I really am confident that we have carved out something that can provide the opportunities to the students that would have been able to capitalize, while at the same time kept in place what we all find to be the most important values when it comes to school sports.
And lastly, Jeff, we know that you're getting short on time, and we appreciate you joining us on the program today to talk about this massive move by the MHSAA. So often with this, the debate early on has been about how it changes sports, how it changes these high school sports in Michigan, but really the impact that matters is that on the student athletes themselves. Why is this move something that is a benefit to these students and gives them those opportunities that they may not have previously had?
Well, it's hard to say because I think we're still trying to see what exactly the opportunities really are going to be. I think there's probably some anticipation that there are a ton more than maybe there really are. And again, that remains to be seen. It could be anywhere. It could be all over the map. We will find out in a year from now, since we are collecting all the data on this. We'll have a a great, gathering of information that we can share with people to say, okay, we have this many deals, and this is the kind of money people are making. These are the kind of companies that people are working with. But if nothing else, it does allow some athletes who, again, probably the ones that will be doing some pretty significant things at a collegiate level or higher up than that, some opportunities now that they've already built a brand, they've already built a name recognition that allows them to take advantage of a few things. And it's very similar to what you have when you have a student who might be very good in the arts or very talented in something else that is another activity at this age. And now these athletes can also capitalize on something similar.
Well, Jeff, we appreciate your time and for clearing up some of the concerns that people may have as personal branding activities become available to student athletes here in the state of Michigan. Appreciate it.
Yep, take care.
You can get more information on the expansion of personal branding activities, or NIL, by the Michigan High School Athletics Association on their website. Visit MHSAA.com. Foodies in Keego Harbor love their local restaurants, and during their annual restaurant week, Taste of Keego 2.0, the restaurants give their thanks in the form of exceptional deals on the best local meals. Here with the inside scoop from the restaurateurs is our resident foodie, Jake Schaff. Jake, thanks for joining us live in the heart of the lakes.
Of course. Thank you, Tyler. As you said, Taste of Keego remains underway all throughout Keego Harbor as several favorite eateries put their best foot forward to the public to enjoy their delicious food. And right now, I am outside of Cannell Bakery in Keego Harbor, one of the many places involved with Taste of Keego this year. Now, we've already gone over what an event like this means for the community and to the customers, but what about the restaurant owners themselves? Being included in such a prominent event of the culinary world in Keego Harbor means just as much to them as it does for the people they serve. I spoke with some of the restaurant owners recently to hear what they had to say on their involvement in this year's Taste of Keego.
We do it every year, so we are very glad to do the annual restaurant thingy. We're happy to do it. It's always exciting. We like to be with this community always.
Well, it feels like a big part of our community. It's a good thing to have community involvement. It's nice to see the businesses come out and support the city too. I think it's important that we have that collaboration between businesses and the city and the people. They need to know who's in their community and who's there and who's paying the bills and who's supporting them and everything else. So I think it's a good thing.
We are getting both sides of it because we have a lot of different foods at Brew House for everybody to taste, and then we have our slider bar. So it's two very different places, two different very tastes for everybody to try. We have a lot of different restaurants and places to eat out here. It brings just a sense of community, I guess, and brings people from other areas.
That's right. Everybody is flocking over to Keego Harbor to get a taste of all of this incredible food. And these are owners who put their blood, sweat, and tears into making these restaurants work. And being featured in an event like this is just more proof that they made it. And Heather Zuniga has doubled the gratitude as she's the general manager of two of the Keego hotspots on Taste of Keego this year, as she mentioned, Brew Brothers and Brew House. She went on to explain what this means to her as someone who was welcomed into this wonderful community.
I will tell you that I moved out here about 9 years ago, and I am so happy that I have, because it's really just a totally different place. You get a totally different feel out here. I've lived in Oakland County my whole life, but different places, and I just love the community feel out here. And bringing people together and finding different places to enjoy eating out with your families. And I don't know, I think family and friends and community are huge.
That's what it's all about with Taste of Keego, Tyler. And there's going to be many more opportunities for everybody from Keego Harbor to West Bloomfield to even beyond Greater West Bloomfield to get a taste of this wonderful food all week long.
Yeah, Taste of Keego continues all the way through the weekend, so still plenty of chances. You got today, you got Friday, you got the opening of the weekend. You're going to get plenty of deals at all those restaurants, 9 participating in total, Jake. So you've taken the tour a little bit so far. A lot of people going out enjoying those restaurants, and thank you for giving us the latest as you talked to people who have frequented those restaurants earlier on this week, and today talking with us live to those individuals that are running the restaurants behind the scenes. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you, Tyler.
Jake Schaff live with us in Keego Harbor, where Taste of Keego 2.0 is well underway, hosted by Keego Harbor Parks and Recreation, one of their really start of the year kickoffs to events that happen all throughout the calendar year. You can get involved with Keego Harbor Parks and Recreation on their website, keegoharbor.org, or visit them on their Facebook page for updates on events coming up throughout the rest of this winter. And of course, their very strong summer slate. Visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/khparks. The bitter cold in greater West Bloomfield is brutal for you and I, and it's equally challenging for our non-human friends and neighbors as well. Wildlife, one of the greatest attractions to our community, is heavily affected by Mother Nature's fickle weather wonders just as much as we are. Here with more information is the West Bloomfield Parks Naturalist Supervisor, Lauren Nazuri. Lauren, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on to talk about this, because so much of the conversation recently with the fluctuations in weather, and especially those cold temperatures like we may be feeling today and certainly have felt so far in January, they don't just affect us, they affect our wildlife, those animals that are outside in our community each and every day. A little bit different than us, but what are some of the ways that they're affected when the weather goes from seasonally cold to absolutely frigid?
It really depends on the species, because all of them handle and take care of winter in different ways and have special adaptations. So I do want to start with making sure that it's clear that animals do have really great adaptations for this extreme weather, but maybe not this extreme weather. So a few animals that might start to struggle, for instance, are our Virginia opossums. I know that they're not everyone's favorite animal, but we really all should love them because they take care of a lot of our tick population. But the Virginia opossums are really susceptible to frostbite when these wind chills get so high, because they have bare skins. So their tails are unique with not much fur cover, their paws, and then and their nose as well. So that's one species that you would think would be just fine, but actually when it gets a little bit extreme is a little bit more affected. Some of our frogs and things like that are deep down under the water and are bruminating, which is the amphibian version of hibernation, do okay. It's when what happens is when it got hot, 52 degrees, if we could all think back just a few weeks ago when all the snow melted before it all came back again, that's when species like that start to struggle. So it really just depends on the species and the conditions. It varies for all different wildlife.
What are some of the ways that their behavior may change when they are negatively affected, either by, as you said, that really unusual frigid cold that we sometimes get in winter and seems more often this one than ever before, or in those other cases, the other swinging of the pendulum toward unseasonably warm weather? Does their behavior change in ways that we may notice?
Yes. So they conserve energy. They're just very, very conscious of conserving their energy. Food is scarce. They don't want to leave the safety of their den or the snow mound that they might be keeping warm and away from the wind chill. So they're not moving as much. So just because you see an animal that is not moving does not mean that it might be hurt or that it might need our assistance. It might just be conserving energy. Especially like our frogs and amphibians and things like that you see under the ice, they don't move at all. They are in full-on rumination, conserve all your energy mode until spring comes. But even our furry mammals that we are used to seeing in the snow, when it gets this frigid, they're just conserving energy as best as possible, and that means moving less and less. So basically, a lot of people will get phone calls that are concerned because this animal's in their backyard, hunkered down and hasn't moved. That's more than likely a good thing for them.
When they do interact with those animals, so when they do see those animals, hopefully we just let them be, but in the case that you are concerned, what steps should they take to ensure the safety of these animals, and if there is a problem there, to take care of that in a way that's best for their animals, but also for maybe their children, for their pets at home as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We always want to look out for our wildlife friends, but often the common misconception is that things that we think we should do actually do more harm. So offering them food and water might not be the right thing to do in that point in time. Warming them up too much too fast is not a great idea either. So we really encourage the public to just make a phone call first and get an expert involved rather than trying to go out and do it yourself. There's just too many things that we can do that seemingly would be helpful and really are not. So the best thing to do is look up on the DNR website the licensed wildlife rehabilitators in our area. They're sorted by county. So a licensed wildlife rehabilitator has been gone through training and knows exactly what to look for and how to assist wildlife if it's needed. And they'll let you know if it's time to intervene or not. So just be a really good observer. That's what we ask. So before you make a phone call like that, or before you step in, take some time, really assess the situation and have good observations so that when you do make a phone call for help, you can give them all the information they need, and then the right action or no action, whatever it is decided is safest for the animal, can be taken.
That website, michigan.gov/DNR, you'll be able to search what you need there to get in contact with the DNR's local branches so that they can help you with this information. And of course, if you have questions during the week, the West Bloomfield Parks naturalist staff is there as well. They can direct you to those resources. If you can't remember, michigan.gov/DNR. A lot of websites we got to remember, but these can be important for our local wildlife. Lauren Azuri is with us on the Splash Live, West Bloomfield Parks naturalist supervisor, as we discuss how the weather patterns that are heavily affecting our day-to-day lives lately here in this Michigan winter may also be affecting our local wildlife. Lauren, during this winter season, what are some of the more typical behaviors that we see from our local wildlife that may be beneficial to our ecosystem as we transition eventually out of winter and into the spring and summer?
Well, if you're out and observing, if you're brave, or maybe you are feeding birds from your window and you're sitting inside in the coziness, you'll notice that a lot of our bird friends that do stay around in the winter months, the ones that don't migrate, our seed eaters, they will be puffed up. So they are using science. They're using what they know, and they will take their feathers and take big breaths and trap air underneath. It's why humans actually purchase down coats. It's why down comforters are so warm for us, because along with the feathers, it traps air, which is a second layer of insulation. So if you see any of those birds out there all puffed up, that's what they're doing. So keep an eye out for that. And a lot of our mammal friends are still out roaming about. So our deer, you'll find their track. They're out looking for food. They adapt by changing what they eat this time of year. So instead of eating all the green plants and new sprouts in the spring, what they do in the winter is called browsing. So they will eat the inner bark of new twigs and branches. So they eat more brown foods in the winter than they do in the spring. So you can look out for marks on the trees and plants. And if you're walking on the trails, you can see where the bunnies and the rabbits and the deer have been browsing. So they do change what they eat. So they have some great adaptations for sure that you can notice and see and observe if you are brave enough to go out in the cold this week.
Lauren Azuri is with us on the Splash Live from West Bloomfield Parks, talking about, of course, one of the biggest topics they get to discuss with the community, the nature and the wildlife that makes West Bloomfield a destination here in the state of Michigan. Lauren, before we let you go, anything else people should keep in mind as this winter weather continues to fluctuate, and so does the impact it has on our local wildlife?
Well, I will just try to cheer everybody up and know that snow is actually very beneficial in nature. So the world needs snow, and our area does need snow. So the extreme cold can be challenging, of course, but the snow that's on the ground right now is actually really good for a lot of our animals that are hunkered down and hibernating. So snow acts as an insulator. And what the challenges that our local wildlife face is really when it all changes. So when it all melts and then all comes back, that can really mess with their systems and their internal clocks. So appreciate the snow while we have it, because it does help the wildlife survive. Snow holds air as well and captures it. So on these really, really cold days, guess where all those animals are? They're actually in the snow rather than out in that cold, frigid wind chill air. So if it helps cheer anybody up in this time of winter blues season and how cold it is, the wildlife really does need the snow.
As we're slipping and sliding around, we can all just kind of chant to ourselves, it'll be helpful eventually. The snow will be for the good later on in the season. Lauren, thank you so much for your time as always.
Thank you.
More information from West Bloomfield Parks is on their website, wbparks.org, including their nature programs with Lauren and her dedicated staff. You can also find more information about their upcoming events by following them on social media, WB_Parks on Instagram and on Facebook at WB Parks. Winter weather can't stop outdoor recreation, but when the weather shifts from cold to warm and back and forth, your trip to the lakes for a skate, a hockey game, or a day of ice fishing can quickly become an emergency. If it does, the West Bloomfield Fire Department will be there to save the day. It's no easy task, and we've got the inside look right now into what goes into making those rescues happen. Joining us is WB Fire Department Training Captain Jeff Letkowski. Jeff, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on to talk
hopefully
about
we can get some good information out today.
Yeah, absolutely, because not only are we going to be able to discuss some of the work that your team does to prepare for these emergency situations, but also why it's important for the people of our community to be very careful when they go out on the ice, even as the winter seems like it's back to being its usual cold self, and it's been frigid for quite a while now. You'd think with that the ice would be back to being quite solid and be very safe all across our many lakes here in Greater West Bloomfield. That's not necessarily the reality, though, is it, Captain?
No, and that's a great point that you bring up, and it's one of the misconceptions with being safe on the ice is when you get the cold temperatures and then it heats up and melts and then it freezes again, the ice is actually not as strong as it typically was the first time that it froze. So in moments like this, even though it is negative, very cold out there right now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the ice is safe. And the importance of testing the ice thickness before you go out on it is vitally important for your safety and for our safety as well if we have to go out there and do an ice rescue.
There's great information on how to test that and what are some of the parameters you're looking for on their Facebook page. Follow the West Bloomfield Fire Department on Facebook at WB Fire Department. Captain Letkowski, there's so much training to go in this. This is very much a loaded question. But when your first responders go through this training, what sort of is that process for them to learn? What will go into ice rescues on the many different lakes here in Greater West Bloomfield?
Yep. So every year we go out there with all of our firefighters and we practice ice rescue training. As you know, West Bloomfield is full of beautiful lakes, streams, and ponds, really anywhere you turn. The one thing that we practice when we go out there is we have our Mustang suits, which is a dry suit that keeps us safe when we go into the water. We practice our communication. And then the old adage is, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Anytime that we're performing, whether it's training or an ice rescue, obviously the ice has already been compromised. So it's not safe to be on. So it's really important for us to slow down, to make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe so we don't become a victim as we go out there to try to get that person or even an animal out of the ice.
And so there's, as you mentioned, there's so many different scenarios that could pop up. It's not just the lakes. You think about that because they're kind of the larger scale of the waterways, but rivers and streams and other waterways in Greater West Bloomfield can also pose those hazards. So what sort of scenarios does your team simulate when you go through this ice training? Because as you said, it's not just a specific response team, it's every firefighter in your department.
That's right. So we all train, all 90 firefighters. Really, the big one that we're training for is making sure that we are comfortable with all the equipment that we have to keep us safe. Again, communication, and then just slowly and purposefully making our way out onto the ice. Just like with a resident that may have fallen through, we want to make sure that we're almost crawling on the ice as well to kind of disperse our weight so that we don't fall through, so that we can help the victim and not have to worry about trying to rescue a first responder. So a lot of the training is different techniques of getting someone out of the water that has fallen through the ice. We also do a little training on, it's a dog catcher pole. A lot of times we'll see animals such as like deer and dogs that go through the ice. We'll respond to those calls as well and perform the rescue to get the animal off the ice. Because what we've found in the past is sometimes residents will go onto the ice to try to rescue that animal. And we would much rather do it ourselves with the equipment to keep us safe. That way we're not having a secondary rescue.
So if someone does witness a person falling through the ice, or they see their pet in their backyard run out onto the pond, run out onto the ice in the lake, and then they suddenly don't see them. What are those initial steps beyond calling 911 that they should take, and steps they should obviously, as you mentioned, some of them avoid?
Yep. The first one, just to reiterate, call 911 immediately if you do see that. The second one is try to find something you can throw, whether it's a life jacket, a rope. What you don't want to do is to get onto the ice because, again, it's already compromised and we don't want a second victim. The best thing you could do, call 911, really get a fixed point of where you saw them go into the water. Remember exactly where it is that you were standing. So when the police and fire do show up, you can stand exactly where you were at. You can point to where you saw them last, and then we can start the rescue at that point.
Captain Jeff Lefkowski is with us from the West Bloomfield Fire Department as we talk about ice safety and the training that all 90 firefighters in the West Bloomfield Fire Department undergo to complete those rescues when a call of that kind does come in. Captain Lefkowski, just got another minute with you before we need to move on. Any lasting thoughts or things that you believe would be vitally important for residents of the greater West Bloomfield communities to know when it comes to ice safety throughout the rest of this winter?
Yeah, the big one, as far as the thickness of the ice, when it may be safe to go onto it, again, it's never a guarantee. You never want to be on a lake that's frozen if it's less than 4 inches. So the old average of 4 to 6 inches, it's typically safe to walk on the ice, to go ice fishing, ice skating, things like that. Always do the measurement yourself. Just because you see someone out on the water doesn't necessarily mean that the ice is safe to go on. So make sure you're measuring it yourself. And then if you are on the ice, make sure you have some safety equipment yourself, whether it's a life jacket, a rope that you can throw. They have ice picks that you can put in your jacket so you can help climb yourself out of the ice, the water, if you do fall through. And again, always make sure you let someone know that you're going out on the ice. That way they know to look for you if you don't return.
Good information to keep you safe and to understand what our local first responders will be doing to rescue you and yours or others in the community if an emergency on the ice does arise this winter. Captain Lefkowski, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
More information is available from the West Bloomfield Fire Department on ice safety, winter safety, and more all across the calendar year. Follow them on Facebook at WB Fire Department. Again, that's facebook.com/WB Fire Department. One of the finest restaurants in Michigan is right here in the prettiest little city in the state. The Sylvan Table is that restaurant with people coming into our community from all across Oakland County, around the state of Michigan, around the region, and more. Now their ownership is expanding their food service magic to another place in the city, opening the brand new Cardoon Cafe and Provisions. Here with more on the biggest new restaurant in town is Scott Martinelli, the executive chef at Cardoon. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Chef, excited to have you on, and I know the community is very excited already about this restaurant coming in from the Ryan family that owns Sylvan Table. Already tons of prestige behind that restaurant. Now they want to go with a little bit of a different strategy, but that same quality in mind. What can people expect in the coming weeks as Cardoon will eventually open here in Sylvan?
Yeah, so Cardoon, we're really going for sort of the all-day cafe, bakery, deli sort of vibe, right? So as where Sylvan Table is more of a dinner-specific restaurant, a little bit more high-end. This is a little bit more of a casual approach. A place where you can come in and get your loaf of bread, sit down, have a beautiful pastry. At breakfast time, have a sandwich and a salad and a bowl of pasta during lunchtime. And then obviously as we get into the evening hours, come in, have a glass of wine, some light snacks before you head home for dinner. And in the meantime, peruse our retail area and grab some of your favorite Epicurean goods, your olive oils, your vinegars, a lot of your house-made goods that we'll have in store for you as well. So very exciting, just a little bit of a different concept, but the same sort of ethos apply.
And perhaps this is a better question for Tim and Nicole Ryan, who are the proprietors of Cardoon, and of course of Sylvan Table. But as they're opening this restaurant with this concept that you just described, why was Sylvan Lake the place that they wanted to put this new venture of theirs?
Well, I think just speaking from the experience of opening Sylvan Table, the community embraced this restaurant, this concept, with open arms and with a ton of excitement, and honestly have supported it, in a large capacity, since. So, we'll be 5 years old coming up this summer. And so it really just seemed like a perfect fit, just given that the community, we feel like we know the community at this point. They have a great appreciation for really good food. They have a great appreciation for local food and food that's, cooked with the seasons and cooked with intention. So just knowing the community like we know at this point, we felt like it was a really nice fit.
All right, we've seen cafes, we've seen delis, we've seen sandwich shops. They pop up all throughout the area here. We have great restaurants in Southeast Michigan and here in Greater West Bloomfield. This one, Cardoon Cafe and Provisions, has been described as European style. Define that for us. How is the European influence going to play into this new restaurant?
Sure. Yeah, I think, a lot of the places that you go to, typically in the bakery setting, they'll lean very French, very Italian. And we love that stuff too. Don't get me wrong. Like there's nothing better than a nice fresh croissant in the morning and a cannoli and those types of things. And we'll have all those things. But we really want to highlight some of the other, bakery and deli cultures that exist in and around Europe. We love the Nordic cuisines, the Nordic bakery culture. We love, Austrian cuisine and German cuisine and their bakery and deli culture. And so kind of blending all those concepts together, like it just felt like there's so much more that's not necessarily represented in the area and Southeast Michigan, in general, that we'd like to sort of bring to the community and show people, things that we're really passionate about.
And especially the era that Sylvan Table was launched in Greater West Bloomfield coming out of the pandemic, the fact that it has survived 5 years is an accomplishment in and of itself. It's something that's tough for restaurants to do nowadays, but it's a proven commodity. It's been proven ownership and a proven model here in Sylvan Lake, and it's making Sylvan Lake a destination for these restaurants. So as this new adventure begins for you and your team at Cardoon, what about this concept, about the food that you're going to be delivering and providing there, about the experience that people are going to have in that restaurant, do you believe will resonate with people, not just in Sylvan Lake, but those from all across the local area and beyond that have come to this community for these restaurant experiences?
Yeah, I think when you go to bakeries and deli and a lot of your supermarket chains that have a lot of these types of goods in there, it's very homogenized in a lot of ways. The same products being offered in most of the same stores. And what we'd like to do is bring that same approach that Sylvan Table has to that sort of concept, right? Everything made from scratch. There's a lot of technique behind everything that we do. Sylvan Table being one of the first restaurants in Oakland County to be certified under the HACCP principles for meat curing and charcuterie. Obviously, in a deli setting, that will work quite well. And so a lot of our charcuterie, a lot of our house-made deli meats, our salamis will be made in-house, cured in-house. And so those kinds of things I think will be really unique to us and things that we can bring to the community that aren't necessarily present quite yet.
Cardoon Cafe and Provisions will be open very soon. Could be as early as spring, according to early reports this month from the Detroit News and more. Scott Martinelli is with us, the executive chef at Cardoon. And as we get ready for the big opening of what will be a favorite new restaurant here in Sylvan Lake, you're the executive chef. Any chef's favorites we should be watching out for? Those first few things we should try when we walk in the door at Cardoon.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll find that other chefs that you talk to, a lot of chefs, what we like to eat is oftentimes the more casual stuff. When we get home after a long day of cooking, we want something casual, something comforting. So something that I'm particularly excited about is the house-made hot dogs. To start off, we'll be featuring a Danish-style hot dog with remoulade and crispy onions and relish, and obviously house-made buns. I myself am a hot dog guy, so I'm very excited about that one.
Scott Martinelli is with us on the Splash Live, the new executive chef coming up at Cardoon Restaurant that will be opening very soon in Sylvan Lake, right down the street from the Sylvan Table, the famous Sylvan Table that's become quite the destination in the city of Sylvan Lake. Chef, anything else for us that we should know as we get ready for Cardoon to open here in the coming months ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just really excited to see how the community responds and kind of see what everybody takes to as far as the menu goes. I think that you can expect a lively atmosphere, a very warm atmosphere, a place where the neighborhood feels like they have a say in kind of what's coming out of the kitchen, and obviously a place where we hope to get to know people really, really well and get to on the first name basis with a lot of folks. So just really excited to see everybody in the community come out and hopefully, give us a shot come this spring.
Well, Chef Scott, we are appreciative of you taking time with us today to preview this big opening coming very soon in the city of Sylvan Lake, and tell us a little bit about Cardoon Cafe and Provisions as it's set to open in the months ahead. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Scott Martinelli is the executive chef at Cardoon, was one of the opening sous chefs at Sylvan Table when it opened, now coming up on 5 years ago, and has become world famous, bringing people to the prettiest little city in the state of Michigan. We'll take a break on the Splash Live. On the other side, earlier on we talked about the new NIL allowances from the MHSAA with the MHSAA. Now we're going to bring it more close to home here in Greater West Bloomfield. Talked to a couple of assistant coaches, including one who is quite the expert in marketing for NIL for athletes right here in our community as well. That's coming up after this break. Stay with us live, local, social. It's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV.
We'll be right back with the Splash Live. Find local municipal meetings at our program schedule on civiccentertv.com. Find when your meetings air live or when they're replaying on our Civic Center TV live stream. Find it all at civiccentertv.com and click schedule at the top of the screen.
Can't be late to your own party. Hurry up! Hurry up! Ah! Do not cut me off. It's her fault. Her fault. Ah! You kidding me? Honk, honk, honk! Honk, honk, honk! Honk, honk! Late! Out of my way! Honk! I hate construction!
You should have slowed down.
My party.
You wouldn't act this way in a store, so don't act this way on the road. Driving slower saves lives.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Hello, my name is Danya Bazzi. I'm the superintendent of West Bloomfield School District. I want to congratulate Civic Center TV on hitting the amazing milestone of 1 million viewers. Your involvement in our community doesn't go unnoticed. We thank you for keeping our residents and community engaged in the latest and greatest news and information. I'm Danya Bazzi, and I'm proud to be 1 in a million.
And now, back to the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, welcome back to the Splash Live on Civic Center TV. I'm Tyler Keefe. Thank you for joining us today and all throughout the week, live on civiccentertv.com. We're also on demand. Find all of our programming from the Splash Live, other special productions coming up later on in the week as well, and all throughout the calendar year. And of course, links to our social media, which you can also find on our website, Facebook, Civic Center TV 15, and everywhere else, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Find us with content posted daily at Civic Center TV. You've heard of NIL in college sports. It's a game changer. It's controversial, and now it's coming to the MHSAA. Some even argue that NIL may be ruining sports, but close to home, name, image, and likeness deals are going to be a part of high school sports and be bigger than ever before. They were already here lightly, but recently, the MHSAA's Representative Council voted to expand their reach to endorsement deals, paid appearances, merchandise sales, and more, leaving many to debate. Is this good for our young student athletes? Is the sanctity of high school sports in Michigan perhaps in trouble? Or are we all just kind of overreacting to something new creeping its way out of the status quo? Here to discuss NIL and the MHSAA are two of West Bloomfield High School's GOATs, former assistant football coach Daryl Bingham, as well as Nick O'Shea, a football alum at West Bloomfield High School, a former collegiate athlete and current Lakers assistant coach, and is also the founder and COO of Extra Point Solutions, which specializes in marketing for athletes. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us today.
Thanks, Tyler. Good to see you again.
Glad
Good to see you, Tyler.
Yeah, good to see you both. Glad to have you both on today. Coach Bingham, I want to begin with you because from your perspective as an assistant coach that's been at the JV level, has interacted with the varsity level, you've seen the development of West Bloomfield football over the years, including some of those big stars that have gained quite a notoriety in recent years, like Donovan Edwards during his time at West Bloomfield High School, Max Hairston, of course, at Kentucky, and now with the Buffalo Bills. From your perspective, knowing what you know so far about how NIL will be part of high school athletics, what are your thoughts on this change from the MHSAA?
Talk about a brave new world and new frontier. This is going to be quite interesting. First of all, I got a call. I talked to Donovan over the weekend. And one of the things he talked about is, hey, Coach, maybe I should go back and make sure that they pay me for past years of all the work I did. I could have made a lot of money in NIL in high school. And we're just laughing and joking about it. But I think what's going to happen over the next few years is going to basically be, they have the framework in place, but only when it starts operating will you be able to tweak and understand what it means. If you look at high school NIL, it's no different than back in the day when I was in high school. There was a athlete who was in our school who was very noteworthy, and he used to do some modeling for some of the clothing companies who would put advertisements in the newspaper, and he got paid for that modeling. So it's kind of like that same concept. People knew his face and his image. And he was a very nice built young man, and he would model clothing and they would put it in the newspaper, and, people would see him and say, oh man, we saw you in there for Houston Hatcher or whatever company it was that he was modeling clothes for.
And on that front, you have these changes that are on the surface level. You look at them, you may think that they're quite significant. They could be game-changing for the sports that we love in the state of Michigan, but the MHSAA, the way that they describe this, it's personal branding activities. There's a level of separation between the schools and the players, which hopefully may address some of that competitive balance between schools and between sports. Coach Bingham, I do want to keep it with you for this particular question because the locker room management of this plays into a factor too. People get that star notoriety. They start to bring money into things. Young people, their egos, they're something that you're really trying to manage as part of a high school locker room, especially in a prestige sport like football. How do you believe this may affect our athletes in West Bloomfield?
I wouldn't say just West Bloomfield, but just overall. My biggest fear is not necessarily high school, but leading into high school. The impact of kids matriculating from youth sports coming into high school and the mindset that it sets up for, not just for the child, but more importantly, the parent. You'll have parents who may approach you and say, hey, what can you do for my kid? And they'll make decisions on where their child attends a particular school based upon, commoditizing their child at that age. And that's what worries me the most. Youth athletics or amateur athletics, it's just that, it's amateur athletics. When you start converting that young person into a commodity for marketing purposes, it will change the whole dynamic of how you have to manage that locker room. It will make it a little bit more challenging. I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot more challenging, because you do have those parents where you sit back and it's already tough enough sometimes to manage some of the outcomes that parents are looking for. It's going to become even tougher a little bit when you start talking about dollars being out there available for some of the kids who have notoriable faces and notoriable images.
And perhaps the most unique perspective we can get here is from somebody that has seen all different angles of this. Nick, we'll bring you in now, as your company works with athletes on their name, image, and likeness deals, but you've also been a high school athlete with people of high star power and notoriety in a prestige sport like football, and have been an assistant coach with West Bloomfield High School too. So from your perspective, knowing what you know now about what's going to be in place through the MHSAA's rules, what is your take on how this will impact student athletes and impact our locker rooms at the high school level?
I think there will always be a learning curve, right? Sure. So I think it'll impact student athletes. There's always going to be, this is an unknown to them. This is something that they've never been exposed to. So there's going to be things to learn, whether it's about finances, whether it's about social media, whether it's about how to market themselves in their name, image, and likeness. And not only the student athletes, but I think parents as well. There's going to be a big learning curve. So I think the biggest thing that we can do as coaches, but also parents and players can do, is go into this looking to learn, right? With parents and players both alike need to come into this and learn what's best for them, learn what's realistic for them more than anything. And yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to, more than anything, it's a great opportunity to educate, I think. I don't think we're going to see many players like we see at the college level right now making hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. I don't think we're going to see that at the high school level. But what I hope we see is kids take advantage of this opportunity to educate themselves. And, when I was a student athlete, we always knew to keep our social medias clean and keep it, don't get political on social media. Don't post any inappropriate things on social media. Be careful what you say. It's a different day and age now. You don't only need to be clean on social media, but you need to be effective too. And I think there's a big space where students can learn how to be effective there. Student athletes can learn.
A couple more questions for each of you. Nick, I want to stick with you for a moment as someone with an expertise in marketing for athletes that are in these prestige sports and a variety of sports at the collegiate level, most of your clientele with Extra Point Solutions. As parents and students alike start to explore these new opportunities, what are some of the 2 or 3 key aspects they should be considering as maybe offers come in or they explore how they can approach some of these opportunities?
Yep, I think parents and student athletes need to remember that NIL is marketing, and marketing businesses are going to want a return on investment. So just keep that in mind when you're asking for dollars and when you're asking for an unpaid partnership, whatever it is that you're asking for. Keep in mind that the first question they're going to ask is, what is my return on investment? So be prepared to answer that for them. Be prepared to sell yourself to them. You are the product as the student athlete. And I think another big thing that people need to know is the difference between exclusive and non-exclusive deals. An exclusive deal would mean, let's say I signed an exclusive deal with Nike. It would mean that you can only sign with Nike. Maybe that exclusivity is only in terms of other sports apparel, or maybe it's only shoes, or there's different levels to it. But exclusive means you can only sign with that brand to a certain degree. And non-exclusive means that there's no restrictions. You can still go sign with other brands. So I think those are 2 really important words that people need to remember going into this new day and age.
Lastly, Coach Bingham, from your side as a parent and also as an experienced assistant coach, there's going to be inevitably some crossover between these relationships between the professional side, those marketing opportunities, and the student athlete side with the coaches and the players managing those locker rooms for parents, but also for coaches. What would be your suggestion to them as they engage in this brave new world in high school sports in Michigan?
When I take a look at to being one of the positive outcomes that comes from high school NIL, is the opportunity to reinforce what we as coaches and parents talk to our players about all the time, which is be aware of how you're promoting yourself out there. Be conscious and be deliberate in making sure that you are promoting positive images of yourself out there, because at some point in time, it can come back and bite you. When you make bad decisions, it can come out and just come back around to you. So that's one of the great things about it. One of the more interesting things about it is, now you got to pay attention to the fine details, what you can and cannot do. And I think a lot of times being a young athlete, they make mistakes. But now, because of the area that you're operating in, this is an area that you can't afford to make these mistakes. So you got to read the fine details. You got to pay attention. You got to have good people around you who aren't driven based upon you trying to earn a dollar, but who are making sure that you maintain the amateur status to keep you eligible to continue to play high school athletics.
It's complicated, it's controversial, it's a game changer. It's going to make things very different for our student athletes and for our athletics programs alike. It's our job as the adults on the outside looking in to help the kids through this transition and make it as smooth as possible for our high school sports in Michigan. Coach Bingham, Coach O'Shea, thank you both for joining us today.
Appreciate you, Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you as well, and all the time that you give us an inside look into sports in our communities. Beloved high school athletes in sports that will continue to be so even through this very different time we're going to be in with NIL, or personal branding activities, as the MHSAA calls it, making its way in expanded fashion into our sports communities. That's our show for today. I want to remind you that television that's close to home is always available online on civiccentertv.com and all across our social media. A big thank you to our entire crew making the magic happen behind the scenes, and of course to you for being part of today's adventure along with us. For our entire team, I'm Tyler Kieft. Live, local, social, this is The Splash Live on Civic Center TV.